This is the video tutorial for the assignment in which you have the opportunity to experience sample items. In this assignment, you'll actually get to try some on and then discuss the experience with your colleagues. It really will help you in this assignment if you have the Schoology app, which you can download from the Apple App Store or the Android App Store, whatever it is you use. As you can see on the iPad, I've got my Schoology app right there. So just make sure that you have that downloaded first. As you work through this assignment, you'll actually have an opportunity to explore sample items and think about the skills that students are going to need in order to be able to be successful. You'll also think about how this assignment is going to differ from current assessments. So we're going to start by clicking on the Sample Items ELA link, and you can find that right here. So go ahead and just click on that. It may take you to a screen that looks like this. Don't be alarmed. All you have to do is then go to this area where at the bottom it says Open in Safari or Email link. You get a little square with the arrow, touch that, and this is the dialog box that will come up. Go ahead and click Open in Safari, and the screen should look more like this. And again, we have another error item. Don't be alarmed. All you need to do is turn your iPad to a horizontal orientation rather than a vertical orientation. You can see that totally goes away. So now what we're going to do is actually start getting into some of those sample items. The first thing that you'll want to do is actually click up here where it says View More English Language Arts Literacy Sample Items. You should get a dialog box that looks like this. For the sample and video tutorial for this assignment, we're going to look at Grammar Ruth 2. So you can click on that link with your finger. And after clicking on that link with your finger, you'll see this particular sample item. The idea behind this is to read some sample items and, as I said before, to really think about the skills that students are going to need to have in order to complete these assessment items, and also think about how this type of assessment is different from what we're currently asking students to do. In order to do this, we actually will ask you to go, we actually have a note sheet that you can complete, and that's back in the Schoology forum. So what you'll want to do is go back into our assignment forum in the Schoology app and look at the sheet that looks like this. You're going to download the note sheet for the experiencing sample items. The purpose of this is to help you track your thinking, and you can do that by clicking this link right here. It's important to note, though, that when you open up this document, you will not be able to type directly into it, nor will you be able to print it. What you may want to do is take a look at it as a model and then be able to recreate it on a piece of paper in order to track your thinking and to keep track of some of your ideas. Once you click that item, you should get something that looks like this. As you can see, this note sheet is already partially completed so that you can have an example of what kinds of things you can write down for notes. So if you think back to the grammar task that asked students to determine the context clues in order to determine the meaning of the word scarred, there's some things that we can think about in terms of student skills. So one thing that students may need to be able to do is to have stamina to read a long piece of text. Certainly they'll also need context clues. They'll need to know how to use context clues to determine meaning. And from a technological standpoint, they'll need to know how to select words and phrases using a mouse, since the particular grammar task is a technology-enhanced item. If we're thinking about the differences from the current assessment, one of the things that's a really huge deal is that the current assessment is multiple choice. In that respect, students have a limited amount of choices, 4 or 5 items, and they can just select from one of those. Whereas in this particular assessment item, there are multiple options. Students can click any phrase they want in the assessment task in that paragraph of text. So students really have to understand how to use context clues and also provide multiple answers for that, which is a completely different paradigm from a multiple choice test. It makes it much more difficult for students to guess and get the answer correct. Also, students need to be able to determine context clues of figurative language as well as literal definitions of words, because in the paragraph that you read, if you look back at the grammar task, scarred is really being used figuratively rather than literally there. And so that's something else that students are going to have to be able to do, which isn't totally aligned with what students are currently being asked to do, especially on the earlier grades of assessments. So then after you have an opportunity to look at that assessment task and take some notes on this sheet, using this as a model, we're actually going to ask you to go back to the Schoology app. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you can see the Schoology app is there, so you can go ahead and touch this again. So you can touch that and go back to the Schoology app. Once you're back in the Schoology app, you're going to have an opportunity to start looking at some math tasks. As you can see, we have the math task link right there, so just click on this link. And once you click on that link, it should take you here. Again, we see that error message. You may get, you may not. If you do get it, remember you're going to actually hit this button right here that has the little square with the arrow in it. And when you touch that with your finger, you will get something that looks like, this. Open in Safari or email link. You want to touch open in Safari. And then you may get something that looks like this. Again, another error message. But remember, if you just turn your iPad sideways to the horizontal view, it's all fixed. So then it looks like this. And you see the little swimmers up top. Now again, just like with the English language arts or literacy tasks, we're going to be looking at this. View more mathematics sample items. So go ahead and tap that. When you tap that, you will actually get this blue dialog box. And again, you can select any of these tasks that you'd like, except we're going to ask you not to look at any of the performance tasks for now, just the other items. For the purpose of this assignment, let's just take a look at sandbags 1. So you want to tap that with your finger. And when you do, you should see this. As you can see, this is a word problem that is asking us to figure out if Jamal can fill sandbags that are the same size and if he can pour sand from one into another and still keep all of his sandbags weighing less than 50 pounds. This is a complicated word problem that students need to be able to solve. And as you can see from this section right here, there is a place where students are going to actually have to write their response rather than answer in a multiple choice format. As with our language arts tasks, again, we're asking you to keep in mind what students are going to need to demonstrate, what skills they're going to need to be able to demonstrate, and also how this type of item differs from what students are currently asked to do. So what we'll ask you to do after you have an opportunity to read this task and this item and think about it, go back into the Schoology forum in the assignment 8 and pull up your note sheet again, or pull your notes aside if you have them written beside you. And we're going to ask you to do the same kind of 2-column chart with the math tasks as you did with the language arts tasks. So you should see something like this. As you notice, we have the 2-column chart, again, with skills that students need to have, and then also the differences from the current assessments. In terms of the Jamal task, what students are going to need, first of all, is probably they're going to need multiple pathways for problem solving. The way that we go about solving that problem isn't prescriptive, so students might need several different tools in their toolbox to be able to do that, maybe even drawing a picture. Students need to know how to do that in order to solve this problem. Because there is that section for written text, students are also going to have to know how to justify their reasoning using mathematical language and being able to describe their mathematical processes. If we think about the differences from our current assessment, that's completely different. Students are currently assessed primarily on their ability to solve algorithms or just quick problems and arrive at a correct answer. In this particular problem with Jamal, students also need to be able to explain their process, which means they also might need other ways of solving a problem, which again is very different from what we're currently asking students to do. After you have an opportunity to explore 3 to 4 math tasks and 3 to 4 literacy tasks and take some notes, we're actually going to ask you to go back into the Schoology app. So you can see right here, you'll want to visit that again. And then you'll want to click on the Assignment 7 discussion in the Schoology app. As you see, there is an info bar right here, and there's a discussion bar right here. In order to engage in the discussion, you'll actually want to tap the discussion bar, and then it will take you to a screen in which you can add your thinking to the conversation. Once you tap the discussion bar in Schoology, you'll get this screen, and in order to add to the discussion, you'll need to click this plus up here, which will bring up this dialogue and comment box. You can add to the discussion by typing directly into this comment box and adding your thoughts, and then click Create. We hope that this tutorial has made your experience on iPad very pleasant and that you have a really good time exploring some of these tasks and collaborating with your colleagues. Thank you.